Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Tim McKay. How are you, Tim?
I'm good, thanks. How about you, Kay?
Good, good. I've got so many questions for today
Hmm.
planned, and as usual, but we're also going to be playing a little game today, so we're gonna try and go through that as um, professional as we can.
Oh no, you
Probably
didn't
gonna
tell
be
me
some
that.
laughs. There'll probably be laughs, who knows?
It'll be good.
But first and foremost, I wanna say congratulations on your audiobook for
Thank
The
you.
Fall of Selvandrea. How does that feel?
It's surreal. I don't know. The weird thing about one, I did it myself. So
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of work that went into that, and that was after having worked with a narrator for a while and not just falling through.
Mm,
And but then when you put it up yourself on ACX, they tell you 10 business days and it'll go
yeah.
live. They'll approve it and they'll put it live. You don't get to set a date, you don't get to plan it like when you're self-publishing a book on Amazon. It's very different.
Yeah.
So it just sort of happens. And in my case, they went over the 10 days. So I'm kind of sitting there like, oh no, did I do something wrong? Is something
Mm,
off? What's gonna happen? And then no,
yeah.
it just goes live a few days late. And so suddenly you have a launch happening at 5:30 p.m. On a day when you've already just worked your butt off all day, tons of writing, tons of editing, and now it's like, oh, I guess I'm launching an audiobook.
I got a promo, I
Yeah,
gotta put the other hat on.
yeah. But it was fun. It went very, very well. I was blown away. Actually, people really hopped on to support, and it's been great. So it's been very fun. I think I was exhausted the next day, and now a few days later, I'm just sitting back and watching the buys come in and watching the hours climb as people actually listen, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool. So it's been fun. Now it's just fun.
I imagine that must be surreal too, knowing that one, you narrated this yourself, but seeing people in real time reading and listening to it
Yeah,
as you tell your own story, that must be quite a feeling of a different level when you're an
yeah.
author, right?
I don't think I knew. I mean, I saw the internal side of the ACX system, but
Mm,
I kind of just that went right over my head as I was looking through it. You know, just bracing for what to expect. Once it went live. But on for Kindle Unlimited, authors can
mhm,
see pages read. Right? Obviously, it doesn't
mhm.
say individuals, but it's kind of that same vibe. But it definitely feels like on a different level
Yeah,
because pages read doesn't really translate in your mind to anything other than it could be 20 people, it could be 5 people, it could be 100 people reading one page and getting bored, right? You just don't know.
right,
But something about seeing it in
right.
terms of time, like 40 hours where it's been live just a few days and people have listened over 40 hours now.
That's
That feels
amazing.
significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really curious for people who change the speed at which they listen to, does it take
Mm.
that into consideration? Do you know in the
No, I don't
background?
think so. No,
No?
no. So
Okay.
it's the total listening time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That would
crazy.
be interesting though. Yeah. If someone speed listens through, you know, a 17-hour audiobook in 8 hours, will it show up? I assume it would just tell me 8 hours as opposed to
Right.
17, but who knows?
Yeah, it's just one of those things,
Yeah.
in the back of
Yeah.
my mind I would think about. But,
That
yeah.
is a good point. Yeah. So now
Well,
they could have listened to even more and I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, I'll take it. Although
Come
I
on, do this.
feel like I tried to speak slower than I normally do,
Mm.
significantly, but I'm a fast talker, so I still fall mid-range. I listen to professionally narrated audiobooks, some faster than me, but most slower, and
Yeah.
so I'm definitely on the faster side. So I think I'd be amazed if someone can listen to me at 1.5 and still enjoy the experience. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'll up the speed, but it really depends on the narrator.
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of listener where, um, even if I'm immersion reading with a physical or an ebook copy, if the audiobook is too slow, I get distracted. But the
Yeah.
faster I go, the more focused I am. It sounds
Okay.
completely backwards,
No, no,
but
I
I
get it.
retain more because I'm
Yeah.
forced to focus and actually listen. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious now.
From previous conversations we've had about
Mhm.
immersion reading, because of you, I do it now. I'm on my second audiobook doing it, and I love it.
Nice.
And the funny thing is, right now I'm experiencing what you're talking about, where the narrator is just a little too slow. And
Yes.
it's worse when you're trying to immersion read because you want to keep going and you keep
Mhm.
having to go back just to follow along with how they've taken 30 seconds on a sentence that should have taken 10, you know?
Yes. Yeah, you just have to match it with your own internal voice in a way, reading voice.
Yeah. And I'm like, I
Um,
can't read that's a challenge for me. This is
yeah.
really slow. So it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah, there's quite a few where I've had to speed up for that reason. I'm glad you've had a good experience with it though, and you've
Yeah.
been enjoying it the last couple books you've read.
It changed. I just I forget who I was talking to about it on X, but I said it is. I can't put it into words. I don't think, but it does change the experience dramatically.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it, but I love it. I love the feeling, so it works. It works for me.
Yeah, I think if I were to try and describe it a bit more, I would say the experience is more focused for me. The story I'm far more focused on.
Mm.
I retain a lot more.
Yeah,
But
so
in
retention is definitely up. Yeah,
Yeah, and then I think another aspect is that it does feel a bit more cinematic for me. Um,
that's it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it
because
feels kinda like a not quite movie, but not quite book. There's some weird in between.
it's more visual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know if I'm just reading an ebook or physical copy, that same visual does not happen in my brain as if I were
Mhm.
to plug in an audiobook at the same time. So, yeah,
I tend to be pretty visual to begin with, but
okay.
how I get that when I'm reading is I j end up pausing a lot and kind of play it out in my mind after having
Oh,
just read, which is also part of why it takes me long because I get distracted. I'm like, "Oh, this
right.
is a fun thing to think about," and I look
Yes.
back and it's been 10 minutes and I haven't read another page, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, what it helps with too is I'm notorious for reading and then going back and rereading a line,
Mhm.
being like, "Wait, no, I know I've read this 3 times,
Yeah.
but this time is the time I'll remember."
Try entire paragraphs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get
Yeah.
it.
So, we have John with us. Welcome, John.
Howdy,
Always a
John.
pleasure to see you. And, so for those of that are watching now or later in the replay, can you just give us a quick introduction to your book and, to yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll start with the book. So, The Fall of Selvandrea. I'll hold it up here. Yeah, you've got it too. So, yeah, you have both covers, which is great.
Yeah.
I still love seeing the original, which I guess I do too. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
got both here.
There you
Yeah, I don't
go.
know. I like the border and the symbolic feel, but I love a good illustrate. I mean, this Joe
Oh, yeah,
Arqueza who did this just absolutely nailed it. Just
absolutely.
yeah, I'm biased, but it's definitely one of my favorite covers out there. So
You're allowed to be.
yeah,
Absolutely. It's no,
yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, but so I mean, in short, it's dark flintlock fantasy with some heavy sci-fi thrown in for kicks because I like a good
Mhm.
genre blend. So I like
Yeah.
to brace people in advance. I give strong hints of the sci-fi early on, but then it hits you full force later, and it makes sense of the world that they're living in. So it's just something to if you enjoy genre blends, go in expecting it. If you don't, it's all good, but it might not be your cup of tea. Then I've talked to people who don't usually like genre blends, and they're like, "Oh, this was so much fun." Everyone tells me it leans more epic fantasy for sure, and
Mm,
that was my goal. My goal was there's a sci-fi element that explains the world, but it's definitely set within a flintlock epic fantasy. Ultimately, the world is flintlock epic fantasy. So
nice.
it's dark, it's gritty, but not gruesome. I like to tell
Mm,
people. So you know
yeah.
I call it clean but intense. And I think that's a good
Okay.
way to brace for it. Minimal swearing.
Yeah.
It's not usually my cup of tea, and it doesn't really fit the world anyway. I have some made up fantasy swearing because that's always fun.
Oh,
Yeah, but in a nutshell, yeah, brace for ships, cannons, muskets, swords, dragons, and lots of chaos. And the entire theme is just characters up against this malevolent force that created this world, and they're barely, at the point of understanding gunpowder, let alone how to fight something on that scale. Um,
so you just cut out, there, you froze
oh,
at I'm assuming you were going to say formidable?
Probably. Now I don't know where I cut off. Yeah, great.
They're
Formidable
up
evil.
against blank.
Okay, that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so they're up against this for let's go with formidable. This formidable malevolent force, which is
Mm,
an organism, this parasitic organism that has invaded their world. And so
okay.
the whole theme is these. No, they're not. They're not. It's not medieval technology. It's a step up from that. You have flintlock pistols and muskets and cannons, but they're still nowhere near equipped to fight something on that scale. And it's an evil organism that, to protect itself, creates and unleashes monsters on the world. So you have different kinds of
Mm,
monsters, including dragons, that come into play. So all those fantasy elements, every element of the story, somehow in one way or other, comes back to this evil organism that they're up against.
neat.
Yeah.
Love a good evil story, just
I
pure
wanted to
chaos.
give kind of a sci-fi or explanation for evil. That was the goal.
Right.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Oh, there's so many ways you could take that.
Yeah.
So with this being the first in the series, how many are you planning for the series, so far?
Minimum 3,
Mm,
and right now I can say I'm probably gonna settle it there depending on reception.
okay.
So I'm close to 100,000 words into the sequel, and I was originally gonna make it a 3-part sequel like the first book. The first book is 3 parts.
Right.
So, but at where things are right now, part 2 won't even finish. It'll probably be about 130,000 words.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
well, together, part 1 and 2, it
Yeah.
will put it at 130. And I thought, okay, if I do part 3, it's probably going to go over 200,000.
Mm,
And I decided I don't think that's the right fit. So
right.
most likely, I'm still on the fence. We'll see how part 2 finishes. Most likely, I'm going to end the book there and turn part 3 into its own book.
Okay.
Um, which does make for a good ending. If I was going to leave it at just those 3, there's room
Mm,
for more. There's room for much, much more. But I think the arc I have in mind is it could have been a duology. It could have
right.
been, and I was maybe leaning that way. But just the length that this has gone, now it's going to be 3, most likely 3 books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate how much thought and planning you've put into that, and being willing to change that
Mhm.
potential plan as you go along, because you need I feel like as a reader, it's best to cater, the length of a story to give it justice, right?
Yeah.
If it needs to be a duology, it needs to be a duology. If it needs to be a trilogy, it should be a trilogy. And an author's willingness to navigate their story with that authenticity to their vision and the arc planned is important, rather than
Yeah.
just bloating a story that doesn't need to be bloated to meet criteria, or cutting a bunch just because of whatever reason, whether it's just they wanna work on another project, or they just, you know,
Or you're trying to meet some arbitrary page length
deadline.
goal or deadline. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely fallen into both traps previously.
Okay.
So I've cut things too short and not fleshed things out in ways where I think I could have more, added a little more exposition and a little
Right.
more I love my characters. I think there are 1 or 2 that I would love to give more justice. Uh,
Right. Okay.
and that's something I started doing when I expanded the book. So what you have now is the expanded kind of revised version from,
Oh, okay.
earlier attempts at the story, right? And so I think you get more of that. And then always, the author's curse is you're always going to look back and say, oh, I could have done that. And then you learn something new. Because my thing is I
Mm.
spend almost every waking hour of my days like trying to get better at this.
Right.
And I do that through my teaching, through my editing, through my
Mhm.
writing. It's just right now it's what my world revolves around. And so inevitably,
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. So you use the tools you have to do the best you can today. And a week later, you find out this thing that would revolutionize, but you literally just clicked publish.
Yeah.
And it's just how it's gone with me. So, um,
Right.
yeah. So
I
it makes the sequel writing fun because you can start playing around with those new tools and see how it changes things. But yeah, there's always learning, always learning.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say, I would say looking forward is the important point at that
Yeah,
aspect. When you're getting those tools, you're realizing what you could have done, but applying it to what's next.
yeah,
Because I don't know how many times I've seen authors, where they published a work and then I've talked to them, they're like, I could have done that. I could
Mm,
have done it.
yeah.
And it's so tempting to go back and like fix it, but I need to just focus on moving forward. I think it's something even for myself and anyone else who's creating things. You end up learning something and thinking, could have done it better.
Yeah.
It's a never ending experience, I would say.
And it's always going to be tough knowing which one of, whether to revise or whether to move on is the right call.
Mm,
I think why so many starting authors struggle with it is because, especially if you have a series, if it's a standalone, you're good. You can just move
mm,
on to what we're going to do next, right? If it's the
yeah,
first of a series, and that moment hits you where you realize, usually it's once you've published and you're faced with the market,
right.
and one you realize you either do or don't have the marketing skills, and you have to hone those,
Yeah.
which is its own thing. But then you also go up against reviewers, and you go up against readers, and you go up against other
Mm,
authors who are critiquing your work. And that's where you
yeah.
learn a lot. Often you get a very different kind of feedback from real buyers than you do from beta readers and editors. So
Interesting.
there's only so much you can learn before you click publish, really.
Yeah.
I think you do the best you can, but there is only so
Mhm.
much you can learn before the publishing, before the book is live. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
and
you don't want to curb a series potential because you mucked up the first attempt. And that's, I think, the fear a lot of authors face especially if your book does well but not as well as you maybe hoped, which is, I think, everybody.
yeah,
Unless you're a right off the bat major success, you're gonna have those doubts, and you're gonna think, okay, should I go back or should I go
right.
forward? I've seen cases where both worked, where one author went back and redid it and jumped from nothing to major success. And I've seen
Oh,
others who kept going and will openly admit, they still have those feelings about the first book, but people kept reading and enjoyed the
yeah,
second one even more, and the third one even more. Some of my favorite author friends who are doing really well in the community, that's what
yeah,
they just kept going.
yeah, absolutely. It's gonna vary depending on someone's experience or
Yeah.
and, their individual choices, but, I think the willingness to continue going despite the doubts is absolutely important in those moments because you as much as you, might have that doubt in your mind, having faith in yourself to continue on is, I think, a lot easier to find than the doubt, right? Doubt is often a lot louder than believing in yourself and pushing forward
Yeah, so
at
harder to
times.
find the faith, I think.
Yeah, yeah, harder
Yeah,
to
I
find
gotcha.
faith, sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the doubt's a lot louder.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely it is not a craft or a choice of vocation
Mm.
for anyone looking for a quick fix or anyone looking for,
Yeah.
quick results. You might get lucky, but you'll get the most fulfillment either way by bracing for a
Mm.
long haul. The good and the bad that comes with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time. Yeah.
And that's the thing is it technically, because I published the two shorter works originally and then took them down, combined them, added the third part, I've technically been at this since 2023. But most people
Yeah.
who know me don't really realize that anymore. I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I thought you just published your book." I was like, "Well, I guess, because technically this came out in September 2024.
Yeah.
And then, but the new cover came. So even then, I published the first
Mm.
cover. It did well, but not super well, but not badly either. Like, I was happy with it. But then I
Yeah.
got the new cover, and then it exploded.
Yeah.
Reasonably, it's a pretty darn good cover.
No,
But
absolutely.
that meant that a lot of people think I published it when I published the new cover,
The new cover.
which is
Yeah.
only a few months ago, really. It's only had been 6 months, really. It's been only
Yeah.
6 months, which in my mind, I've been at this so long, and to most people, I'm as fresh as it gets. So it's
Yeah.
a weird feeling.
It's interesting what a different cover will do,
Yeah.
right? There are some that will absolutely adore the original cover. And then, you bring another cover along. And even Robin Hobb is still doing it. There's still new
Yeah.
covers that have been coming out for years on the Farseer trilogy.
Mm.
And there are some, just using that one as an example, there were some that I remember looking at, I think it was Assassin's Apprentice. in the
Okay,
bookstore.
yeah.
And I don't know if anyone remembers this version with the mass market paperback where it was this really poorly photoshopped young man with I think it was there was, some kind of animal behind him, a stag, I think it
Okay.
was. But it was just a very cheesy 3D Photoshop of a person that looked wrong in
Mhm.
ways.
Yeah.
There was a time they went through that, and I'm very grateful
That they
that
got past.
they've yes.
Yeah,
But there could have been people who love that, right?
yeah,
But I think, changing covers, like you did, it will make a difference in some, and it might not for others, so
yeah.
you really have to make that call as the author, right?
And it's hard because you just a lot of this really is a gamble. You do the best you learn as much as you can, you get as much
Yeah.
feedback as you can, but honestly, so much of this is just taking a chance on yourself again and again and again until you get it right. Because
Yeah.
even things like that, I've seen some covers by very comparable authors. This one,
Yeah.
this I can think of one cover artist who I won't name, just I'm not trying to single that artist out or these authors.
Yeah.
But I know one very, very, really good cover artist. Like he's an incredible illustrator. And I know authors who have paid thousands for one of his covers and then their book just tanks. And then
Yeah.
another person will get a cover by from the same guy, essentially the same quality, and they will skyrocket. So then you have these other new authors who look at that and they say, "Oh, so that's the cover artist I need." And one, they
Right.
don't have the money for it, and two, their book isn't maybe up to snuff, and three, maybe their idea and the execution doesn't meet what actually has the same mass market appeal,
Yeah.
and you just don't know. So you end up with a lot of these authors who pay for the same cover artist as these really successful authors, and
Yeah.
don't get the same results, and we're all left wondering why. And the truth is, it's just none of these things are a quick fix solution. You know?
No. No, and that's a absolutely an important point to make,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with the wide public, and I don't think any of us can agree on
Yeah.
one thing. So,
Yeah. Exactly.
results will vary.
Yeah. Yeah. Just brace yourself for that. Results will vary.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, with all that in mind, you've also you've got your editing. You've just immersed yourself in the world of literary aspects, and most recently, you started hosting chats
Mm,
on all caps book chat, and I'd love to talk to you about that because
absolutely.
it's so fascinating to me when people start doing it, what they've learned, what their experience has been like. So could you, before we delve into it, give us a quick overview of what people can expect when they go check out that channel? Links in the description.
I mean, your 2 second promo is that we're just two goofs who love books and love chatting with authors. So,
Love it.
yeah, like, come expecting a fun time, and that's what we wanted. We would, I mean, I think myself even more than Isaac, but I'm always in the live chats for live streams. When I'm available,
Yeah.
I'm there because I want to learn and I want to make friends with my fellow authors and with reviewers and booktubers, and
Yeah.
it's a great experience. So I was already heavily involved in kind of this community,
Mhm.
and Isaac and I, we were meeting about once a week to write together, and those would turn into just long book conversations. And
Right.
eventually we thought, why don't we start maybe streaming some of these because we're having such a blast anyway? And then we thought, why don't we invite some authors of our author friends? And it just evolved very quickly into us doing this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been a blast. It's been we just bring people on and have, now it varies in length, but we accommodate the needs of whoever's coming on.
Yeah.
Usually we aim from an hour to an hour and a half. We've had a few
Yeah.
that have gone way longer, which is really, well, who cares, right? We make the time, and then whatever
Yeah.
time whoever comes on has, works. And you chat, you have some fun, chat about life, you chat about what's going on, about what motivates and inspires, the author, what went into the book they've written, what they're
Yeah.
working on, how they do it. Us just riffing off each other and learning and growing as
Yeah.
authors. So yeah, it's fun.
I love it. I love it. Especially that you're able to dedicate that time to it.
Mhm.
And accommodate schedules because it is so hard to navigate time zones, to coordinate those
Yep.
schedules. It's a lot just in that aspect. So huge kudos to you guys.
It helps that both of us work remotely and relatively flexibly. Uh,
Okay.
so that's a big bonus for us is it's made it easier for the most part to accommodate like anyone from Australia or the UK.
Yeah.
Still depends, but it means that that's not as much an obstacle to us, which is nice, at least until things pick up. Uh,
Yeah.
or I mean, I don't know. No, it seems it's we've both been able to work around it so far, but we both have spurts in our busy schedules that we have to work around. But it's been fine. Luckily, it's been fine on that front. It's always interesting, because it means
Yeah.
we can't predict when we're going to go live. And then the other downside is
Oh,
that
yeah.
both of us love these other live streams, but it means we get to attend less because we're doing our own thing now too.
Yep.
Sucks because I'll
You
find
can't
out
win.
someone is scheduled at the same time as us, and I'm like, no, I wanted to be there.
Well, that's the beauty of replays, at
Yeah,
least, but
yeah,
yeah, I know what you mean. I've been like, "Oh, dang it. I was gonna watch that one."
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, replays are very beneficial for that. In terms of that experience of hosting, I'm really curious, of what's been a learning curve in that process for you in terms of hosting discussions?
Hmm. I will say it's probably way easier in some senses, because there's two of us. So if one of us
Uh,
is like, for example, one of us is having an off day, who cares? Because the other can kind of jump in if we see the other person is taking, like we've both done that for each other without even thinking about it, and we'll talk about it after and be like, that went really well, and the other person will say, I was so tired, or I had this thing happen today. My mind was not in. I'm
yeah.
so sorry. And we won't even, and I'll, one of us will be like, hey, it went super well. No one noticed. No one
Yeah.
cared. So that helps because it takes a lot of the pressure off. Like we are just there having
Yeah,
a good time.
that's
Um,
awesome.
I'm trying, like the technical side, Isaac has a ton of experience on that front, both with
Okay.
having done a podcast with his brothers and with his work, digital work for companies. He still
Mm,
does a lot of this stuff and website design and podcast design for them.
yeah,
So
that's
he brings a
huge.
lot of that. He's really good at crafting clips. So we'll take clips from episodes and repost
Yeah.
those with like little video segments thrown in. Uh,
Yeah,
Things that are way beyond like, I can grab the clip and post it, but he's a master with this kind of stuff. So that's fun.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's the technical aspect, is huge,
Mm,
right, when it comes to learning curves, at least it was for me.
fair.
So,
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that it's been a bit more, easier on you
Well,
having a partner who can support that.
you also do actual, static videos, which I think
Mhm.
that's where a lot of those demands become heavier.
Yeah,
Because like most people
yeah,
don't watch a stream, like especially a live chat stream, and I think there's a lot more leniency as long as you don't
yes.
have certain hiccups that we've had to master, but still
Yeah,
much easier than the actual in advance. Like we
yeah,
don't have to do multiple takes, for
right.
example. And there's so many things that we get to avoid by just riffing on the spot with friends.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a completely different dynamic. And you and I were talking about this a little bit behind the scenes where I'm attempting to learn OBS
Mhm.
as a
Oh,
different way of doing these streams and recordings for collaborations. Mainly because I'm frugal and I want a certain level of quality.
yeah.
So the learning curve on that, I think it's been like 2 months since I've started trying to figure it out, and I'm trying to do it little by little in the background.
Mm,
Um, but I know there are services for it. I know you can pay for things. But at a certain point, I know for my own channel, when I've been making videos in the background that are pre-recorded and posting them once a week, I've gotten to a point where I'm like, quality is important and experience is important too. So I do want to still be able to just send a link to the guest
mm,
and just have like nice background and like easy swap between overlays and all of that. And yes, I know these services do it. I just want my money in my
fair.
pocket for
Yeah,
books,
yeah,
you know? So yeah, there can be a lot of learning curves when you go through technical stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, pre-recorded videos are completely different. Live chats are nice, laid back, and, yeah, different vibe entirely.
Now that said, it's fun because this goes for just from the author's side of things, but for me, extended everywhere. I love learning all these new skills.
Mhm.
So not just in terms of writing, not just in terms of editing, not just in terms of marketing, which I love more than a lot of authors I talk to. I actually love that side of things. I want to keep learning, you know.
Yeah.
But then the technical side, part of the reason I wanted to start doing this with Isaac was I thought great opportunity for me to learn. So I observe and I'm starting to play around with some of the things. You know, I
Nice.
try just one to take the load off him. You know, we kind of like we split our tasks and we have a nice flow to it, so everything goes really smoothly.
Nice.
But it's still I still like to kind of be like, okay,
Mm.
how did he do that? What can I do? And then
Yeah.
eventually maybe bring it into who knows where the future goes. But
Well,
I,
even if, one of you is out sick, but you still
yeah,
wanna keep the
exactly.
chat going, you can cover,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, always good skills to pick up. Um, yeah, so I am curious, out of the episodes you've done so far, the
Mm.
chats you've had, which has been the most memorable for you to date?
Whew, well, the easy answer to that is probably EL Lions. Um,
Okay.
yeah. I'm trying to think if there's one that really compares otherwise. I think in that case, just because her and I have gone back and forth for so long
Yeah.
on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
I think it was EL Lyons and EC Greaves were two of the first authors I really connected with in the author space.
Yeah.
And EL Lyons, we both have our love of grammar. We love posting about it. We love posting about writing and the little hacks and tricks that we can learn kind of growing in public, learning and growing in public. Uh,
Yeah.
and so because of that, we've just, we've been in each other's circles for so long that finally getting to
Mm.
chat and just, go wild on that stuff for 3 hours. That was a three
Oh
hour
my gosh.
conversation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just
Yeah.
riffing off and blasting, and talking about, like, I think we spent a solid hour just cracking jokes about Webster. So, it's two nerds in a room together when,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
you had a blast then.
Yeah, it was a really good time. So, and I mean, I knew it would be. We both, we all like we went in knowing that was going to be a fun time, and it delivered. And poor her, I think she had just gotten up and we didn't know, and she didn't tell us that she had essentially had a wake up time roughly 3 or 4 hours later.
Oh.
So
Oh my
so
gosh.
we would have consciously ended a lot sooner if we had known, but we just, and I think
Oh
you
my
could,
god.
it was super funny. So, like,
Oh.
you're having a good time when you are basically about to pull an all-nighter just to
Yeah.
keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
very fun.
That's brilliant. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. But I don't
Um,
envy her the next day, I'll say that.
no, that's what coffee's for.
Yep. Yep.
That's awesome. So, for those of you watching, just a friendly reminder to go check out the links in the description below. You'll be able to find Tim's books, his channel that we were just talking about, all the links to follow him on social media as well. So, definitely go check that out and check out that episode that he just messaged or mentioned because I mean, that sounds like a blast.
It was a goodie. Yeah, you'll get a lot out of it for sure on a lot of different levels. Yeah.
So, one more area I wanted to talk about was your audiobook because I know we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but I'd love to be able to delve into it with you because you had a bit of ups and downs with it in
Mhm.
terms of getting it started and off the ground. And I feel like those kind of things are important to talk about, especially for authors who don't have audiobooks and are looking to go that route, to be able to hear what can happen and how to navigate the circumstances if they do. So, would you mind sharing a little bit about start to where it is now?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a journey. I think the only thing that made the first part of the journey tough was just feeling you're in limbo and you don't know what's going to happen, and then things go south, and it feels like all that time could have been going elsewhere, which was definitely the case for me.
Yeah.
It was definitely it was definitely a significant setback behind the scenes because I had even turned down, I think, two separate editing clients on top of, I had one or two on the go, but I turned down anything extra just to make sure I had the time to devote to the audiobook when I signed
Wow.
on with a narrator. So first thing I'll say
Mm,
there is the great thing was the moment I put my book up on ACX, I had auditions coming in instantly. It was
that's
wild
amazing.
within just a few
Yeah.
hours. And that blew me away. And I talked to some authors who definitely don't have that experience, but It
Mm.
seems like that's for really short books, like novellas have a tougher time,
Yeah, I imagine
you
they
know?
would. Yeah, because it's a shorter amount of time for the narrator as well. You could view it as like a quick job, but if someone's looking to get a bit more experience in, they might gear more towards novels. That would be my assumption anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a blend of 2 things. So it depends on the pay structure as well, but if you use
Mhm.
a royalty share, option, even partial royalty and then partial upfront payment, uh, they're not gonna get as much money per sale, and a lot of people don't use their audio credits on novellas because they wanna save them for big chunky novels, you know?
Right. Yeah, true.
So it's seen I've heard this from a lot of authors with novellas, is it's harder to sell novella audiobooks than novel audiobooks,
Right.
which also means that a lot of narrators kinda go in seemingly knowing that, are a little more hesitant.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
yeah, so that's
That's tricky.
tricky. So now that said, the system's really good for reaching out to narrators, and you can
Mhm.
find a lot of really solid narrators around in our sphere, for example, on X and elsewhere. But
Yeah.
anyway, so on that front, I got lucky. I heard some samples, some way better than others. So some very comedically not that good, and you get some laughs out of it, and you're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a bit of a confidence boost because then you see that they've done this many books, and you think,
Right.
oh, maybe I could maybe do this myself. Yeah, but
Yeah.
the narrator I signed on with was very good. We had a lot of fun. I gave him all the material. I think the short version of the story is I think he just bit off way more than he could chew, and it was going to be only his second audiobook, and my novel much longer than the other one he had done.
Right.
So I don't think he
Right.
budgeted the time, fell behind, got stressed, fell behind more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
the long story short is we ultimately parted ways because there was we it probably would have taken an extra 3 months past the
right.
10 weeks we already had just to get it done. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, as much as you wanna be understanding and be, accommodating, you also have your own deadlines that you are
yeah.
hoping to and a contract potentially around that time frame as well. So,
Well, and again, I
yeah.
even turned down editing clients, right? So I set myself
Yeah.
back unknowingly a significant money
Right.
to try and, put more energy into this and support him,
Mhm.
which initially worked out well. We had anyways, but what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, so but the great thing was during that time, in advance, I'd already tested out systems, I'd already bought a better mic, and I'd already recorded a whole bunch of chapters just to see what went into it and to practice editing, to learn the tricks, to get the software.
Right.
So then watching him do it even better, I then paid attention and said, "Oh, that's a great way to do it. That's how I can narrate a bit better for those kinds of segments." And so I tried to learn at the same time,
Right.
so when things fell apart, I realized, no, you know what? I'm prepared to do this myself.
Nice. Yeah.
So what was a setback ultimately turned into, just the chance to learn a new skill. And I dove in. I
Yeah.
oh man, yeah. I think that was a lot of hours put in over very little time.
I bet.
Now the narration I spread out because you have to save your voice.
Yes.
And you have to learn some tricks to keep your voice longer. And since I was
Mhm.
just beginning, I got much better by the end, but uh, yeah, that was fun. There were some fun experiences in there. One day in particular, I just completely blew out my voice on an
Oh,
intense scene
no.
and just had to scrap the chapter and restart the next day. Things like that happen. It's fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
I bet.
But other times it went really smooth. I think the nice thing is it's my story. I know how I want it to feel, and I know how I
Right.
want it to sound. So pronunciation, they're all right. But even
Right.
the feeling of what someone says, or just adding a little extra emotion to the
Mm.
narration itself, like it was easier for me to do because I know the sense of it in advance.
Yeah, you have a better well, you have the
Yeah,
original concept of the intonation, the tone, the emotions that go behind it, yeah.
yeah. So
So, I
that
am
helps.
absolutely. I am really curious in terms of I mean, I know you had all those little learning curves that went along with it. Your actual experience of the narration portion,
Mm.
how was that for you? 'Cause I as far as I know, we haven't discussed any prior experience in terms of narration and like, acting and things like that,
Yeah,
unless
no. So, well, one, I went in right away, and I try to tell people in advance, you know, and I'm not just saying this so you'll go nice on me when you're listening to this. I want you like, I treated this as an author reading.
Yeah,
We are sitting
okay.
down together. I'm in a bookstore or at a library with people sitting around, and I'm reading you the story.
Yeah,
But I tried to give it the quality it deserves. So that's where learning the skills came. The editing, that's where the editing, I tried to edit the living heck out of it.
right.
Sometimes retakes, but then just a lot of little tricks and macros and things to get it within the right specifications.
Yeah.
Um, with actual characters and voiceovers, that one was fun, but interesting too, because again, like you said, I have, if you want to go back far enough, I have some acting experience and I have lots of
Okay.
public speaking experience, just
Ah,
from,
okay.
right, so my pastor days,
Yes.
and teaching, obviously. So
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable speaking in front of crowds, which a lot of days this felt like, even, at my setup, when you hit that record button, there's an interesting nerve that comes with it, and you have to sort of,
Yes.
part excitement, but also just part nerves of someone's gonna be listening to this. I better do it darn well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah,
expectation you've gotta meet,
yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
with voices, though, in particular, that was interesting. And for the most part, I just, gave slight inflections of it is an author reading.
Mhm.
And now I try to give some characters unique voices. I really just tried to focus on the tone. If the right
Right.
tone was coming across and there was some variation. So like, for example, a really interesting one is I have some scenes where I have a very broad-shouldered soldier kind of character interacting with two twin sisters. So I
Okay.
have to flip from a very masculine, intense voice, which I didn't try to exaggerate too much,
Right.
because then the drop down or up, becomes too extreme and you have to do too
Mhm.
many retakes. And some voice actors can do that, but I know where I'm coming from. Maybe next time, but that's my point. This is my first go.
Yes.
I wanted to, not just treat it as a fun author reading. So some inflection on the male voice. And then when I'm going to these two sisters, now I have to vary myself between one of the sisters has a gentler, kind of kinder, more even tempered personality. So I can, simmer down a little for her and go, a little more mellow,
Yeah.
but then her sister is a firebrand. Her sister is, the troublemaker and
Mm.
spunky and bitter and angry and all those
Oh
things.
my gosh.
So you kind of have to, so I'm very quickly jumping between these three voices, and
Yeah.
that's fun. But yeah, like you'll notice little differences, but it's always me. It's still me speaking. I didn't try
Yeah.
to overdo it on that front because at one, I didn't trust
Mm.
maybe I'd love to keep learning, but I did not
Right.
want to ruin this audiobook by overdoing it, which I think I would have. Yeah. Any
No.
more than I already did, it would have been bad.
That's fair, especially since you had that previous experience where now you are already behind the what you were hoping to be, and now you're
Yeah.
going, "Okay, well, let's buckle up and let's do this, and we gotta get this down."
Yeah.
So yeah, I could definitely see that. There's, I think there's something to be said in terms of, I know narrators are phenomenal, like you said, for jumping between voices really quickly, but there's something to be said for jumping between personalities really quickly and capturing that as well. I think that's really important when it comes to audiobook narrations
Yeah.
because if I can just even if the narrator keeps a same voice, if I can immediately tell the difference in terms of their personality that they're bringing through,
Yeah.
I know exactly who that character is, that's a huge win.
If
Um,
I'm
yeah.
being honest, I much prefer that. Like, that to me
Yeah,
is the absolute priority when I'm listening to an audiobook, and the last 2 that I've listened to in particular with immersion reading, I can say,
yeah,
like, that to me matters infinitely more. I'm listening to one
mm,
right now that I love the book, but
right.
the narration, I won't name it because I don't wanna, throw shade against this narrator, and I certainly
Fair.
do not wanna throw shade against the book because it is really good. But the
Yeah,
narrator falls into the trap of very, they don't have flat narration. It's just inappropriate tones for what's being read.
Right.
And then when it comes to the voices, a character will say something and the scene very clearly calls for sadness or stress or anger, and they speak almost happy, or like
It doesn't match.
the mix match of emotions, and yeah, it just is honestly a bit boggling, especially since you can tell the narrator put so much effort into giving each character a unique voice,
Yeah.
but the tones are just so far off that it would anyways. Yeah, it's just that
Yeah.
to me jars far more than a single voice for the entire thing. I'd rather that if I had to
Yeah.
choose.
Absolutely. You want someone going like, "Oh, this is terrible," in the most happy,
Yeah,
joyful tone.
that's literally it. Yeah.
Yeah. "Oh my gosh, we're gonna die. How terrible," you know? Like,
Yeah.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah. So, now that said, everyone has their own different, tastes
Of
and
course.
pet peeves and so on. So I'm sure some people are gonna, listen to mine and say, should have gotten a professional to narrate, especially that voice. But, and
Yeah.
who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's totally fair. And I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And that's the fun thing. I intend to keep doing it. Maybe for
That's
future books or
wonderful.
maybe a different series, I would get someone else. But
Right.
my plan is to definitely narrate book 2 as well, and to narrate the
Yeah.
novella I'm almost done.
Yeah.
But that's a different series, that I'm starting.
Okay.
So I'll be but,
Mm.
that's the nice thing because it's short. I'm almost done. I'll publish it, and then I'll narrate the audiobook and publish that soon after. So I get to do this
Nice.
again very soon, which is great.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of Andrew D. Meredith, where
Mm.
he does the whole shebang.
One of the legends right there.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you've had a positive experience overall. You got to learn things out of it as well, and we've got more to look forward to in the future too. So I know when you sent me a message saying like, "Oh, it's only going to be it's gonna 10 days," every day I was checking on Audible. I was like,
Me
"Is it here
too.
yet?"
Yeah. I
Yeah.
knew it might
So
take longer just because it's a longer book, but
right.
I've talked to authors who had books longer than mine, and they were published within 5 days, and then I've talked
Yeah.
to authors with books shorter than mine that took a month, and
Right.
none of these authors were able to give concrete reasons why,
Interesting.
you
I
know?
wonder if it's more of an administrative on the back end.
Yeah. So, I think what helped for
Yeah.
me is I did get in contact with support and then a separate support, and then they emailed the quality team, and I think they lit a bit of a
Ah,
fire under their butts and got it in
yep.
motion. 'Cause
Excellent.
everything went from only 1 of 4 steps approved to all 4 approved within a few
Yeah.
hours on the day it went live. So,
Absolutely administrative then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good on you for checking because
Yeah.
some folks might just let that sit.
I gave them their 10 days, and then I went to town. Yeah.
Reasonable,
Kindly. I
absolutely.
did it I was yeah, but
True
all I did
Canadian fashion.
exactly, Canadian fashion. I said, "Sorry, but,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna dive into, a little game now, if you're up
Okay.
for it.
Let's do it.
It's all in good fun. So I've been having fun with this in the last few interviews I've done. It kind of works in twofold. It's fun, but it gives a different way of interviewing.
Mm,
We get a different way to see your answers to circumstances or situations. So today's game is going to be fill in the blank. So I'm going to pose a sentence to you, and you need to fill in the blank, and
my
we'll see
worst
what
kind of
happens.
test.
Yeah. Your own answers. I need a 500-word essay, no.
Oh, now I'm having
Uh,
flashbacks. Thank you for that.
you're welcome. So, yeah, these are just simple. I put a mix of writing and reader experience, so we
Mm,
get to see both sides of, Tim here today, and we'll start with the first one, which I feel like will be pretty easy. As a reader, I love stories that include blank.
hmm. That's not easy. I read a lot. I didn't know. Dragons. There you go. There's an
There you
easy
go.
answer. Yeah, I will say I am still a good old-fashioned dragon lover, but that's a bit of a
Love it.
cheat answer.
That's fair.
I feel like I can do better. I don't know. I Revenge. There's a better answer. I'm a
Oh,
sucker for a good revenge plot. done well, I
Interesting.
love it. I don't know why. It's just I really do love it. And some people are like, "No, I hate revenge in stories." I'm like, "Give me all the revenge."
Interesting.
It
I
works
okay,
for me.
so I'm curious on that. What would break a revenge trope for you? What would make it just not as enjoyable?
Okay, so what would go against the norm enough that I wouldn't
Yeah.
like it? Because I normally
Yeah.
like, you know, I like varieties on tropes. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that would be a really tough one. Honestly,
Yeah.
because I can think of, like, the bad guy winning, and I've seen that and enjoyed it, or
Right.
or another one, a lot of people demand, "Okay, even if the revenge happens, you have to then punish the hero," and I couldn't care
Mm.
less. I've seen some great examples where the hero gets revenge and then goes off into the sunset and lives a good life, and I'm like,
Right.
"I'm totally fine with that." In fact, some of my favorite stories just do that. Just give me this person went to town on them and tried to ruin their life, essentially succeeded, and they
Yeah.
pulled themselves up by their strap boots and came back and got some justice, good old fashioned cowboy justice, and went on their way. I am so okay with that story.
Yeah,
Some people get
okay.
morally repulsed by that. I'm like, it's a story and it's actually kind of awesome. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair. We have Mark from the Book Lounge with
Hi,
us.
Mark.
Welcome. Always good to see you. So right now, Mark, we are playing Fill in the Blank. So feel free to play along with us by posting your answers in the chat. The next one is as an author, I love to tell stories that blank. I'm giving you the flip side here.
Yeah, okay, okay. Same answer. Dragons and
Same as-
revenge. That was easy.
there you go.
Not entirely true,
Ah,
yeah. If anything, I mentioned revenge early on in, The Fall of Selvandrea, and it's actually
mm,
less of a theme that well, it is. It's meant to tell you kind of the backdrop of what this character is doing and why for the rest of the
right,
book, because then from that point on, you don't get as much of his POV intentionally.
right. And context is important.
Yeah. So revenge is definitely important from his perspective, but is the book a revenge story? No, 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 no. And that's,
Right.
it is absolutely a quest against evil, but revenge
Mm.
isn't always the best way, if ever the best way to seek that out. So yeah. Anyways, and the dragons though absolutely guilty. So I do love writing. I put a bit of I try to have fun with it. A lot of people like the very first dragon you see and the unique spin there. Um,
Nice.
but thereafter, I liked, there's a lot of classic tropes. I have a fun magical spin on them, and obviously their origin of being protectors of this evil organism gives them a unique spin. But otherwise, they're just fire breathing crazy monsters. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
They're there for good fun. They're not,
Yeah.
my focus is definitely elsewhere in the story.
Right.
Yeah,
Fair. Yeah. They're like supporting cast for good or
yeah,
bad.
exactly,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
We have Zamar with us as well. Always good to see you, Zamar. Thanks for
Howdy, howdy,
stopping
Zamar.
by. Yeah, Canadians representing tonight. Look at us go.
Heyo.
Next one is if my writing desk could talk, it would say blank about me.
Get all these darn books off the desk. Something like that.
You went for literal.
There's a lot of them, yeah. I went for
Uh,
literal. If it
I
could
lo
say something about me, I don't know, get back to work. I think that's the beautiful thing about being an author is it's
yeah.
licensed daydreaming. It's
Mm,
paid daydreaming is the better word for it.
yeah.
So you can get lost in just the adventure of the plot and fleshing it out in your mind, jotting some notes, getting back to the story. But I'm not that scattered. When I'm in the zone, I'm very focused. But
Right.
yeah, there are definitely times where I think I wish my desk was a coach telling me, get to it.
Yeah, I've actually, because I'm easily distracted as well. I usually am the type of person I have all these projects in my mind, and I'll
Mm.
jump between all of them at the same time when I'm supposed to just be focusing on one.
Hmm.
So what I've been doing recently is I peer pressure works really well on me. So I've started using the game Ithia,
Okay.
just where it's just a study companion. it's just a picture of a person, basically like lo-fi, a picture of a person also studying or working, and it's just
Oh, that's
there in the side.
yeah.
And just the visual of someone sitting there and working, I'm like, "All right, we've got this."
That's funny. I wonder if that worked for me in reading because
It
I'm
might.
not yeah, I'm laughing, but it's true. Like I genuinely am now considering it because I'm very good
Yeah.
at keeping myself to task on my own projects. I pick one
Right.
and I stick to it, probably sometimes too much. Uh,
Okay.
but never, I don't think to a fault yet. I just, it's not something I would give up because it helps me actually get things done. You know,
Right.
like my novella
Yeah.
right now, there are some other things I probably can or should be doing with my morning 3-hour period I usually use for writing. But
Right.
you are not going to make me get, I am getting through this novella, you know?
Right.
Once I
Yeah.
set that time aside for however long it takes me to finish this sprint that I'm on, right now, my
Yeah.
sprint, I usually set myself 3-month sprints. And I'll set
Okay.
that time aside for something, whether it's the audiobook or, you know, so I
Right.
didn't write during my audiobook time. I used that for just recording and editing.
Right,
And
makes
now,
sense, yeah.
and now that time slot is open for writing.
I see, I see.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
when it comes
makes
to
sense.
reading, then I'm like you and I have this audiobook
Right.
I'm listening to and these 3 other books I'm listening to and this
Oh my
person I
god,
just
yeah.
started beta reading for. I'm like,
Yep.
what have I done to
It's
myself?
gone.
Yeah.
So, I if it helps at all, the Ithia game too is XP based. So the
Okay.
longer you have it open, the longer you, like, check things off your the more items you check off your to-do list, the more XP you get, the more things you
Okay.
can customize in the room and stuff. So, it's just, like, that much of,
I like that.
incentive to
Yeah.
keep you invested, right, in whatever it is. And it does have timer features, so if you do need to just set a 30-minute timer to do one
Yeah.
task, it's there too. So those
Fair.
kind of things have helped me. I don't know if they'll help you, but
It
either way,
might.
it's got a
It
good
might.
soundtrack.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, depending on well, reading, I can usually listen to music a little better, whereas I can't
Hmm.
listen to anything when I'm writing. So,
Oh, that's fair.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to try, I used to put on, like, soundtracks,
Okay.
but those would always interfere, you know, so, like, if you're listening to, you know, Hans Zimmer from Batman Begins, you know, in a
Yeah.
battle scene, great. If you're listening to that
Okay.
in, like, a downtime in a pub or a romantic scene, not gonna happen, you know?
Wrong
So,
energy.
yeah, exactly.
What kind of romance scene are you writing?
There is a hint. I didn't. I now there is romance, but it's very hinted and brief by design in the Fall of Selvandrea. It's just you
Right.
kind of know it's there, but it's not meant to be an overarching thing. It comes a little more in book two, but even then, it's not by design where I wanted to go with this story. Um, without spoiling anything, it will. It is
Yeah.
major, but it's not a huge part of the story. Whereas the novella I'm writing right now is following a couple. It's a
Mm.
fantasy heist, and it's this couple and a few of their friends, but really it centers on these two. And the romantic side of that is pivotal, and so it's something I'm exploring and having a weird amount of fun writing.
Nice.
I didn't think I no I don't know. It's coming. I'm really happy with how it's coming out so far, but not what I expected.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I love those experiences where you're like, "I don't know, it's turned out better than I thought,"
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't know what to expect, but great.
I mean, I've read
Um
plenty of it, so, like, I've read,
Mhm.
like, yeah, I used to review for a wasn't a company, but well, yeah, I guess they technically were, but the reviews were all free, and
Right.
but I reviewed for, uh, like, yeah, essentially not a publisher, it was a group of publishers that submitted their books, and a lot of the ones that came in were historical fiction, and a lot of those were romance, and
Yeah.
a lot of them were really good, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I don't mind stepping beyond my
fair.
usual genre norms, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark says, "With reading, I'll read 3 to 4 chapters, go do something, read for a few more, and then go do something. Used to be a one-book reader, now it's more 2 to 3." I
Mhm.
feel like I was a one-book reader before, and then when I started BookTube, it all
Yeah,
went downhill from
yeah,
there. Multi-book reader at this point.
yeah. Becoming
Can't
an
escape
author
it.
for me and interacting with so many authors, that was
Yeah.
I instantly went from one book my entire life, one book reading at a time.
Yeah.
Now, with the exception of academia when I was, studying,
Right.
then, yeah, I would blast but, even then, I would blast through an entire book and then do this, or I would blast through an entire article and then another, then another, then another.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't miss those
No,
days.
I bet.
Yeah.
I'm tired listening. Um, and so for the next one, before I sit down to draft, I must have blank within arm's reach.
Coffee, obviously.
Obviously, that is the only answer.
That is all it is. Yeah, I wake up, I go down, I make a pot of coffee, and I go back up, and I do at least an
Yeah,
hour of writing almost right away. That's usually the
I
goal. Or simmer in by looking through some notes, maybe make a quick post on X and then write. But like I'm my rule is essentially coffee, button, and chair.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. That's my
that's your
more like
checklist.
yeah, shower can happen an hour later, but
Yeah,
I'm in that chair writing almost right away,
absolutely.
literally.
I mean, you gotta do what works mentally, right? Because a
Yeah,
lot of this ends up being mental tricks for yourself in the
yeah.
end to help you get this stuff done. So absolutely.
I've learned that
Uh,
that opening 1 to 2 hour sequence of the day is just pivotal. And you get a very
yeah,
different kind of writing done in that time, at least I
interesting.
do,
Yeah.
than even just a few hours later. So,
Yeah, I think that's an important thing, to experiment with
yeah.
as an author as well, is to try writing at different times of the day and see how you do. I've talked with authors who are best performing at, like, midnight
Yeah.
until
Like, no
3
way, but I
AM.
get it.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
there's no way. I used to wake up early and read for 2 to 3 hours before the household woke up, and that's still my
Mm.
favorite time to read. But unfortunately, my son is very much a light sleeper, so if I wake up that early, it ends up being the meme of the woman sitting with her book and the coffee, and she's like, "Oh my god, where did you come from?" when the guy walks in.
Yeah.
2 minutes after I sit down, he's like, "Mommy, why are we awake?" I'm like, "Oh, no." Yeah, and then awake
Brutal.
for the day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One day I'll get back to that.
Fair.
Um,
It's changed a lot.
yeah. So, for the next one, the book that cracked my brain open in the best way was blank.
Oh. Yeah, yeah. Do I have it here? Yes, I do. Um, yeah, perfect. It would have to be this.
Merlin.
Merlin by Stephen R. Lawhead. So it is
Yeah.
what it sounds. It's about the Merlin, from Arthurian uh,
Yeah.
legend, but told from a Celtic lore approach.
Ooh,
Yeah, second book in a series of five, I think. The first three are the best books I've ever read.
wow.
Taliesin, Merlin, and then Arthur. And the Merlin uh, has such a it, I don't think it spoils it by saying this. I think you go in knowing, but it wasn't an emphasis in the story that I expected. So I won't spoil anything, but I will say like it has a strong tragic overtone that I
Mm,
don't think I expected.
okay.
So you
Mm,
have to expect something to take this young, heroic, adventurous character to the point of being the old, wise advisor of
mm,
future, the once and future king.
yeah.
But yeah, like the journey that this author takes the character on, and the tie-in of so many historical elements and mythological elements from Celtic lore. It's
Mhm.
such a rich story, but then what you witness this character go through and the portrayal of his recovery is honestly
Right.
mind-blowing. I've
Wow.
only seen a few fictional depictions of grief and recovery done anywhere near as well as that. Like it really
Wow,
blew me
yeah.
away. Yeah. So that
Alright.
I think was the one for me.
What was the author's name again?
Stephen R. Lawhead.
Lawhead. Okay.
Yeah, let's see if we can.
Because that's an older series, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. When does it say?
Always love finding good those hidden gems, right?
Yeah. 87, I think. It has I just saw 87, but it might have come. Yeah, 87, 88.
Mm,
Yep.
yeah.
19,
Nice.
all the way back. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, I'm gonna
Those are
check
very
that
good
out.
years for books.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
Mark just said the 80s. Yeah.
yeah, there it is. Mark does have a question as well for us. Here's a good question with being a multiple reader. How invested are you in each book?
Hmm.
Good question.
There's always one. There's always one that is
Yeah.
probably still my main focus.
Yeah.
And the other, 2 to 3 will be kind of my go-to when I need a break from that one, or yeah, and so it varies. The other 2 or 3 will be
Yeah.
mood reads if I'm in the right mood for them. Whereas
Yes.
I'll have one that's definitely my committed, this has to be done first book.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it depends for me too, on which one I'm prioritizing,
Mm,
whether it's due to a deadline or like a library hold, for
yeah,
example,
yep,
because those pop up every now and again, or
totally.
for like chats and discussions with buddy reads. But yeah, usually I try and balance it out as best as I can. My investment level will still be there for each one,
Mm,
regardless. So even if I've taken like a week break from one, as soon as I go back, I'm like, yes, we're back in it. Open it up
yep,
and delve back in. So yeah, I think it's partially timing too when you need a break or whether it's from the real world or the book itself. It's
yep.
helpful too.
Do you have trouble getting back in if it's been too long or,
Not necessarily. Usually I can catch up pretty quickly, though I am also the type of reader where I can go the year 2 or 3 from books 1 to 2 release in a series and be totally fine.
yeah, I'm the same there,
So,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, so usually that doesn't bother me too much.
yeah.
Yeah. Next one is the oddest place a story idea has struck me was at blank.
Hmm, um, I don't know if I have any major ones for that. All the classic answers for me out on a walk or in the shower or
Yeah.
what would
Hey,
be an
that's completely
odd.
fair.
That's a tough one, yeah. Do I have any really odd places? Like, Korean barbecue maybe,
Hey.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's actually a good answer, yeah, 'cause sometimes coming up with the food for a new culture you're trying to create is
Right,
is
yeah.
one of the interesting things for me. How can I give this what matches them, what matches their history and what the geography and what would make sense, but and then you go and you have some exotic food and you realize, "Ooh, this I can see how," and you steal some bits from that and some bits
Right,
from that and
yeah.
create some unique cuisine. So, yeah, eating out I think would be a good one.
Nice, awesome. Next one is I want to see more of blank in stories.
Hmm. I don't know. Yeah, that's tough for me.
Mm,
I'm weirdly not picky when it comes to things like that. Like I can be
interesting.
I'm critical in some ways of the stories I read, but that's usually more the editor in me. It's more
Mm,
the way the clarity and the way something is worded and the flow and the grace of the writing itself. And the overall quality of the grammar and word choice. But beyond
yeah,
that, when it comes to story elements, I usually I am open to just about anything,
right.
and I don't really get bored of anything either, weirdly enough. I
Yeah,
can't think of any like, whenever people list tropes, weirdly enough, like, and I'd like to think
okay,
I'm somewhat well read, but it may
right.
yeah, I'm not yet at the point where anything really, really bugs me yet.
Okay. Fair, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the one thing that comes up for me is not necessarily tropes, but I would like to see more unique spins
Hmm.
on tropes, on any trope really, right? The ones that because, for example, I know you love dragons. To me, dragons feel a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd love to see more unique spins on that,
Yeah.
in terms of stories. So yeah, I can see where you're just kinda like, "Yeah, this is good."
Well, no,
Like,
but it's funny, like, from the
yeah,
author's side, I would get bored writing something that I've read a million times, so that's maybe the difference.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
let's
like
spin this on the author side then.
yeah, I think I should have thought of that because, yeah, I was
Yeah.
just, was it already overbooked, Josh had,
Mm,
Cal Logan on, and
yeah.
and and they were having this great chat. At some point, they were talking about tropes that they are sick of, and, like, the farm boy becomes the chosen one came up.
Right,
And I
yes.
thought, yeah, like, that's one we've all seen a million times. I would get
Yeah.
I had no interest in writing that story at all.
Right,
But what
yeah.
came up in the chat, I actually thought of it. I thought, "Okay, but what about," because I had just recently watched, um, Brightburn I don't know if you've seen that. It's an
No, I
intense
don't.
movie. I can't recommend it to everyone. It is
Okay.
horror, but it's
Oh, yeah,
superhero
no.
or it's it is what if Superman was evil? That's the entire thing.
Oh, yeah,
So Farm
okay.
Boy becomes villain, and that works
Right.
for me. I was immediately like, that is a story I would write, you know?
Right, yeah.
I do not think I'm committed to this. Uh, this doesn't spoil anything for my story. At no point will you know ultimately where it is going to end. But some people notice this, some people don't. So I'm giving it here.
Okay.
The very first chapter of the Fall of Selvandrea. Well, you got the prologue, but then the
Okay.
title of chapter one is literally origins of a villain.
Oh,
And everyone misses it,
yeah.
but then some people do, and they're like, "Oh, wait, I thought this character was the good. What's going on?" Ah! And I'm like, "Yes, I
Yeah.
want you to feel that. I want you to feel that. This is
Yeah,
not supposed to be a story where you know what's going to come, you know?"
yeah,
Uh,
don't get comfortable, like,
yeah.
you're in for a ride, yeah.
I've heard you talk about, I think we talked about this too over coffee one
Mm,
time, but like the classic, Aragon style,
yes,
farm boy gets mentally linked with Dragon, and then,
yes,
and that became overdone the minute
yeah,
Christopher Paolini did it because then everyone did it. I was like,
yeah,
okay, but what if, farm boy to villain? He's not actually farm boy, not this character, but what if we throw in this villain thing that may or may not be the case? And what if this Dragon is actually a deformed reject that like could have been part of the Dragon swarms, but wasn't like so. It's this deformed, broken, bitter. Like it's this take a dragon and how majestic and glorious and terrifying they're supposed to be, and
yeah.
break it down, put it through existential hell,
Oof,
and that's what he's linked to. He's linked to
yeah.
this crippled, broken, you
Oof.
know, vicious, terrible thing that chases him through these ruins, and he's linked to it, even though it's trying to kill him. There you go. That's my version of
Yeah,
like I love spinning tropes, but
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what to
Like,
brace
I'm trying
for.
to
That's the opening.
yeah,
I throw you in like that's. I'll say that in advance. Those are the
yeah.
first like five or more chat. Yeah, technically with the additions. Anyways, yeah, like the opening sequence of the book is just brace for that. It's coming.
Absolutely. Oh, well, people, another reason to pick up the book
Yeah,
for those
yeah.
watching,
You need a break from
check
the.
it out.
If you like twists on classic tropes, I throw in the trope
Mhm.
and then I immediately smack you in the face with it. You can do that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and I think like, if we're thinking in terms of tropes that are along that line, but still unique, I would say these Songs of Chaos by Michael R.
Mm,
Miller. It
yeah.
blends progression fantasy in with the Bond, which makes it far more interesting and a lot more problematic in
Mm,
terms of circumstances, right? So for me, that captured my interest a bit. You still have kind of the farm boy going off and getting in a different circumstance, but
yeah.
yeah, just that blending of the progression fantasy made it more unique in terms of its function and the actual value of the human to the dragon. Because why do we need to bond humans to dragons?
Yeah.
You know?
It gives me
So
I wanna find more good examples of progression fantasy right now,
mhm.
actually, because the new series I'm
Yeah,
starting with this prequel novella, and then I have full books planned to follow it.
right.
They are meant to have more of that progression fantasy feel. So it's
Yeah,
something I need to start exploring more before I really dive in. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so
Interesting.
it's definitely on my radar. Whenever I hear someone say, "Oh, this is progression," I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm paying attention now."
Yeah, I would say if you haven't checked it out already, just even book 1, will give you a good idea of how the magic system functions
Okay, yeah.
in that regard. On to our next one. If I could mail one encouraging postcard to my debut author self, it would say blank on the front.
Uh, my immediate reaction was just to be glib and sarcastic and say, "Don't do it, run away."
Oh, no.
I'm too far in now, but you have a chance. Go, run.
Yeah. Do you think your past self would take it as serious or sarcastic?
I doubt it. My past self would be like, "Oh, there's Tim being a sarcastic bastard. Okay, let's do it anyway." Past me is about as stubborn as current me is, so yeah, I would just keep going.
There you go.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's tough. I don't know. What would be yeah, I don't know. all the cliches that usually work. I haven't changed much since I start. Like I've changed as a person. I just mean my approach. It
Yeah.
seems to be working for me, and I've evolved to circumstances, but the approach itself hasn't really changed. So
Hmm.
I'd mail back a solid 5 or 10 years, and that guy, him, I would give a smack over the head. And
Right.
some encouragement. I'd be like, "Don't worry, what's coming is awesome. Just maybe wait another 5 years."
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah,
Be patient.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go further back, but author me, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
yeah. Younger me
Fair.
needed some smack over the head and encouragement too, but in equal
Um,
measure.
I mean, I think many of us can say that.
Yeah,
Younger version
yeah.
of us needed a little. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next is the question I wish interviewers asked more often is blank.
Oh, that's tough. If I knew it, I'd be asking it myself on our show, so I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. I don't know. I don't know.
The another perspective you can look at this question is, what's a topic I've been wanting to discuss but haven't yet?
Mm, yeah, even that is tough because,
Yeah.
most there is something to be said, like a lot of author chats, on on stream. Well, no, I'm gonna go a different direction. I think there's the script that all booktubers follow, and the truth
Mm,
is, even when it's the same script with the same author on a different channel, it always goes different. You always learn new
yes.
things. So like
Yeah.
I've watched the same author on 10 different channels and learned something new every time. I never get bored.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's more like I really like the downtime in between. I love the tangents. I love
Mm,
give me more of the but that's the thing. Most booktubers are really masterful at this. And we've talked plenty off of this too, and we've talked here, and we've
yeah.
gone on 20 tangents tonight already. That's the
Absolutely,
thing, like,
yeah.
most people, once you've done this enough times, you just fall into you might have you have notes prepared, you've looked into their
Mm,
books, you've done your research, and, we had some jokes with Mike Molman the other day 'cause,
mm.
he found out we really did our research, we found some funny pictures of him to show, like, you have your fun. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have the script side, but then ultimately, once you're having a conversation, it's just a conversation. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so I like more of the questions that dive into it's hard to navigate though, because you don't always wanna you can't always predict what someone actually wants to talk about, but I like
Absolutely.
getting into the personal, or
Yeah,
just the funny or the unexpected, the things that you don't expect to talk about. Yeah, that's more what's
yeah.
fun to me. Yeah, if I can whenever I can diverge someone away from the author talk to the other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
And it's tricky, right? Because I know in my experience doing this, oftentimes there are many circumstances where I've gotten an author on where, we're going through the breakdown of what to expect in the background. And you find it's their first live show ever. It's their first interview ever. And, there's that nerves that go with it too. And
yeah,
you just want to be like, hey, you're good,
it's all good.
It's
Yeah.
all good. We're gonna have an awesome time. And the other thing I've said on these chats as well is your rambling is your passion showing.
Mm,
Ramble away because to me that's opening the doors for more conversation, that's showing me what you're passionate about, and that's what people wanna hear about, is
fair.
what you're passionate about, right? So, by all means, ramble. Don't worry about that.
Don't
Ramble.
tell me that, but some people,
No.
yeah.
Ramble, Tim.
I'll keep going, no. Yeah, it's very true though.
Mm,
'Cause a few people when Isaac and I said, "Oh, we're doing this," they were like, "Okay, but be prepared because this will happen." And
mm,
the number one thing was you'll get people on who just won't have anything to say, and you'll have to really
yeah,
press them for info. And that
yeah,
does happen,
yeah,
but luckily it's never really been I think also because there's 2 of us, if one of us can't think
yeah.
of something to ask, usually the other can,
Yeah,
you know? So
absolutely.
there aren't too many lulls in our conversations, luckily.
Yeah, and I mean, you never know what you're walking into at
Yeah,
the end of the day, someone could be having an off day, someone could be having a great day.
yeah,
They might be more willing to chat because they're having a great day and less likely to because it's been a long one. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's always hard to tell, but I think what's important at the end of the day is still treating it like it's a conversation,
yeah.
and, just being respectful, I think is what it comes down to. So,
100%.
yeah. So, next, I know we're coming up to the hour and a half mark, but I hope you're all right there for time.
Oh, yeah. Flies by as expected, so,
It
yep.
does. So we have a few more of the fill in the blank, and then for while we go through these last ones, for anyone watching in the live chat, if you do have questions for Tim, by all means pop them in the chat, and we will get to those as well. For the next one, a trope I haven't tackled yet, but secretly want to is
Ooh,
blank.
there's a good one. Oh, okay, okay. Uh, I'm trying to think of yeah, there's some tropes that I hear about a lot that I haven't played with
Mhm.
yet.
But you
Ooh,
secretly want to. You're sitting there.
yeah.
Ooh, that would be fun to tackle.
Oh, this is gonna bug me because there are a lot that come to mind. I mean, yeah, because I definitely hit on Motley Group. I have some
Mm,
fun with Motley Groups. I have some fun with uh, twisting the chosen one trope a little. I
oh,
have
that's
your
always
classic
fun.
heir trope, your little child
Mm,
heir trope, and I twist that on its head. Very
right.
fun. I love, yeah. I think we talked about that. I think we talked about that
Mhm.
one time, and I kind of smirked. I thought, "Ooh, here's my book," you know.
Yeah.
Because I know what's coming. I had one reader, they messaged me, uh, they were a certain they'd I think I know exactly where they were in the book. And so they had just learned that this one character is actually the heir to the lordship, blah, blah, blah. They're like, "Oh, not another one of these." They told that to me. They said, "Ah, not another one of these." And I just laughed. I was like, "You have no idea what's coming, you know?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I yeah, I like throwing in as many tropes as I can and then just doing the
Same.
opposite, just out of pure spite. But Dark Lord, maybe? I
Okay.
have something close to villainous Dark Lords, but not like the classic Sauron or Shadow Lord or
Right.
yeah, like if I think of all those classics I used to read that have more that motif of like this pure ultimate evil. I'm getting there in a way. I have kind of a bit of a twist on Star Wars's Emperor Palpatine, so I kind of have that
Ooh.
where
Yeah, okay.
I wanted to twist that trope a little, maybe.
Right.
That yeah.
So you know what I have to say to that, though?
Mm.
Do it.
Dude,
That's
yes. Yeah.
do it.
Actually, that was in my mind while it influenced part of the magic system of part of the anyways, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
really funny because that is something that directly influenced
Okay.
that character. It's just that line of "do it."
Yep.
Anyways, yeah.
Do it.
I won't say more, but it factors
Okay.
in. Yeah.
Interesting. Next one is if my writing process were a board game, it would be blank, and you can give a reason. I'll leave that up to you.
I'm gonna go with Monopoly. I'll let you figure it out. I'm just kidding.
I'm just like, but buying homes? Realty?
No, I we used to play Monopoly a lot when I was
Okay.
younger, and I loved it because it turned something as complex as markets and home
Yeah.
buying to just chance and perseverance. Because if you keep going,
Right.
you'll win, and you're relatively smart about it. I used to mop the floor, and I loved
Right.
something very satisfying. My dad in particular was a very sore loser.
Oh,
So
no.
as a kid, I loved trouncing him and he would get so
Oh.
it was really funny.
Right.
Weirdly
Okay.
satisfying. So yeah, like, but that's the point is it gave, this
Yeah.
5, 8-year-old kid a chance against,
Mm.
a much older, smarter guy,
Yeah.
just playing the odds. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think I see my writing process that way where today might be an off day and I don't bully myself past a certain point because if the writing comes out too bad,
Right.
I'll just end up scrapping huge amounts and it's actually a weight like it probably sets me back
Mm.
because that's like I'll either end up scrapping it all or I'll keep more of it than I should have out of pure
Right.
dumb stubbornness. And then,
Mm.
you know what I mean? It's just, I play the odds. I slowly build up over time, my stack of skills and my stack of a good habit.
Yeah.
And once I'm at my peak performance, then I can several days or weeks in a row get out really good writing sessions. But
Right.
sometimes life happens, right? Could be
Yeah.
something as simple as like a lightning, strike in the middle of the night that wakes you up, and now you wake
Mm.
up the next day a zombie, and you're barely able to write. And if you
Yeah.
try and force yourself through that, it's going to be just keep playing the odds. The next day will be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Right.
so I give myself that leeway, and I play the long game, and it tends to work.
Yeah, wise words in
Yeah,
that regard. Yeah, because when you first said Monopoly, I couldn't quite picture
I knew
it.
exactly what I
Like,
meant, and I knew
rage
it would confuse
baiting?
anyone listening. Yeah,
Wise words.
yeah.
Um, the next one is the thought of blank instantly reminds me of my world.
Ooh, maple taffy.
Tim,
There's another one for you.
you're making this very hard. I don't
Why this is
understand.
supposed to be longer? Yeah,
Maple taffy.
maple taffy. Yeah, there I'm cheating a little. There are direct
Okay.
references to maple taffy in the book.
Because you
Um,
boil it down so much? I don't know.
No, no.
I'm so
In
off
this case,
on
there's literally funny enough. I mean, we both live close enough to the area that you'll know what I'm talking about. But
yes.
one of the central nations in my story is kind of geographically similar to, you've got the Rocky Mountains on one side, and then you have
Okay.
Quebec Lake Country on the other, and that more or less
Oh,
makes up the country. The nation kind of has those are its two major geographical features.
right, okay,
And
okay.
then, a lot of their cuisine is kind of, at the very least, there's a lot of maple thrown in just for kicks, just for me to
Yes,
have a little Canadian fun. It's not
absolutely.
even the central nation of the story. It's just somewhere where I had a little bit of fun. And one of the main
Yeah.
characters is this 8-year-old, 9-year-old little girl who is basically wired and ADHD and
Oh, okay.
hilarious and a lot of fun to write. And she loves maple taffy, and so it comes up
That's
quite a
awesome.
bit. Yeah.
That was a far more simple and straightforward answer than I was expecting after Monopoly, and I overcomplicated it in my brain.
No, you're good. Yeah, there's literally just maple taffy is a
I love
staple
it.
of the world. So yeah. And I
Yeah.
think most people will be like, wait, what? Because early in the book, you see a chapter from her, and she mentions liking taffy, or she says taffy comes from trees. And I'm sure some people will be like,
What?
taffy is, you mean like salt taffy in Maine from, like, I wanted to
No.
confuse people, and slowly
Yeah.
they'll realize, oh, maple taffy. Oh, okay, okay.
Yep.
It's just me
That's
having fun.
fantastic.
I'm just being a Canadian goof in those scenes. It's
I
great.
mean, I love it. I love
Yeah.
maple taffy too, so
Yeah.
I love her already. The last one here I have is my goal as an author is to blank.
Hmm. That's a tough one. I mean, or not. I don't know. Just keep going, and
You're in charge of the you're in charge of the answer, so
yeah, like,
yeah.
yeah, it's open ended, but the
Mhm.
weirdly enough, okay, I'm gonna go a little deep on this one,
Okay.
uh, but maybe in a way that will, I don't think it'll tick people off, but it's just not conventional. The
Mm,
I feel like the standard answer to that question is, well, I'm just in love with this story, and I'm here to do it
mm,
because it's what I'm called to do, or it's what my heart tells me I have to do.
right.
And even if I never succeed, or what is success anyway, I'm just going to keep going. I'm like, okay, all of that is true, but I
Mm,
absolutely want to succeed with this. To me,
right.
that's at least part of a metric. Am I
Yeah,
learning the skills well? Am I marketing myself well? Am I growing as an
absolutely.
author? Like, if I'm still in the place I am today, and I like where I am today, I'm way better than a year or two ago. It's
Yeah,
been a steady progress, steady
yeah,
upward journey. But if I'm still here a year from now, I've absolutely failed. If I'm still here 10 years from now,
right,
why did I begin? I absolutely
right.
want to see it reflected in many readers loving my story.
Yeah.
Because I already love my story, and that's the point. That's never going to change.
Mm,
So that's not a good metric for success or
right,
growth, right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I
yeah.
think, whenever someone sets out for any kind of, goal that takes the amount of time that it does, the investment that it does, for writing, absolutely, I think success is a a valid goal to
Yeah.
have, right? You
So
want a
it's blunt,
wider
but
reach, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be passionate about writing the stories and completely valid as well, but wanting people to actually pick up the book and the stories and read them and enjoy them, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a marker for success as well. Yeah.
So I think, again, I want to get way darn better at this, and I like the
Yeah.
path I'm on. I feel like, even just the difference between book one, which is already,
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of this book one, but book two,
Yeah.
I'm already loving even more. And the
Mm.
novella I'm finishing up right now, like I'm hopefully max a week away from being done.
Right.
And oh my, if it turns out like
Mm.
I'm on the final push. So based on what's there right now, I'm already
Mm.
very, very happy. It might be the best thing I've read.
Mm.
And if
That's
it ends as well as I want it to, I'm excited to show this thing to people. And that's
yeah.
the point. And then, but I imagine a year from now, I don't want that to be the end. I want that to be just the beginning. Always
Yeah.
pressing on to better and learning as you go, and different too. So some things will,
Yep.
like, I might write something that doesn't do as well, but precisely because it's a different genre with a smaller audience, but I can be more proud of that than something that does financially better.
Right,
So
absolutely.
there's room for variety there, but
Yeah.
ultimately I wanna be improving, and I wanna see
Mm.
that reflected in some form of success as I keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's admirable as well to be able to try and continue to learn as you go and continue to improve because it's very easy to just move forward with the motion of things rather
Yeah.
than give that investment in time to improvement. So absolutely admirable on that part. And with that, I think that's a beautiful spot to end our chat on as well. So I just want to give a huge shout out to you, Tim. Thank you so much for joining me and
Thank you for having
playing
me on.
playing the game.
Good. I like that. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
these little games.
Just something a little different, right?
Yep.
Because I find with interviews, I've done so many of them at this point where, yeah, you can go through the questions, but sometimes it's fun to change the formula a little bit and get different answers
Yeah.
than you were
Well,
expecting.
when you joked about
Mm.
professionalism earlier, well, we'll try to do this,
Yeah,
and I thought, okay, one, yeah, we're both laughing because we're both just having good fun. But the other
yeah.
part of my brain thought, oh no, not because of the game. I was ready to have a good fun with that. But we talked about just catching people on different days, different moods. Me
Yeah,
today, I had a really long writing session, and a really trying one. Like I put a lot into it,
yeah,
followed by several hours of editing for another author. Followed by, like, it was just one of those days where there was a lot packed in. And I was like,
yeah.
okay, so this is I am looking forward to this interview because this is my
Yeah,
just fun break, hanging out with Kay, just having a good
yeah.
time. But also, and then you said, oh, and here's a quiz, and I was like, oh no,
I'm so sorry.
and it couldn't have been better. So it's all good.
Awesome, I'm glad to hear that. Some of the other ones we did were like, bookish would you rather and agree or disagree, just fun games. They're still
Yeah,
questions, right? They're still interview questions, but in
exactly.
a different format to be a little bit more engaging.
It
Um,
works. It
so
works.
I'm glad it was not as pop quizzy as you thought it was gonna
No.
be. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us live, chatted with us, and for watching in the replay as well. Don't forget to check out the links in the description. Go follow Tim, go check out his book and now his audiobook as well, narrated by himself. And stay tuned for what he's got next because he already gave us a little preview there as well. So, something else to look forward to.
Mhm.
As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for joining me, Tim, and take care
Thanks.
of yourselves.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.